I never thought the words of my own flesh and blood would cut me deeper than any wound I had faced in life. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and painted the sky in a fiery red, my son, Daniel, looked me in the eye and said coldly, "Dad, you're becoming a burden on this family." For a moment I froze. My hands, frail and wrinkled, trembled as I held the wooden cane that supported my weary body. I thought I had misheard him, perhaps a trick of age playing with my ears. But no, his words were sharp, deliberate, and heavy with resentment. All my life, I had worked, sacrificed, and given everything to raise him. His education, his first car, his wedding, all of it was fueled by the sweat of my brow and the ache of my back. And now, at 75, my worth had been reduced to nothing more than a burden. I looked over at my daughter-in-law, Clara, who stood silently at the kitchen counter, avoiding my gaze. My grandson, little Ethan, just 8 years old, was in the living room, playing with his toys, oblivious to the storm that had just erupted. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and whispered, "A burden, Daniel, after all these years." Daniel didn't soften. He rubbed his forehead and sighed. "Dad, it's not that I don't love you, but you're old now. We have bills, responsibilities, and we can't take care of you the way you need. It's too much. You should consider moving into a home." The word home sliced through me like a blade. Not our home, not your home, but a facility, a place where old souls were sent to fade away. I shuffled back to my room that night, each step heavier than the last. My heart ached, not from age, but from betrayal. The child I once held in my arms, the boy who once clung to my hand in fear of the dark, had grown into a man who saw me as a weight dragging his life down. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the moon, wondering if it had always been this lonely in its glow. My late wife, Margaret, would have known what to say. She always had a way of mending brokenness. But she was gone, leaving me with memories, and now a son who wanted me gone too. As dawn broke, I packed a small bag. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I wanted to remind myself that I still had choices, even in my frailty. Before stepping out, I glanced one last time at Ethan. He was asleep on the couch, clutching the little wooden horse I had carved for him. His innocence was a balm to my soul. I whispered, "Goodbye, little one. Maybe one day you'll understand." And with that I left. The streets felt colder than I remembered. Every step was slow, deliberate, as though the world had aged with me. I wandered without a destination, carrying nothing but my bag and a heart heavy with rejection. Hours passed until I found myself in the park where I used to take Daniel when he was Ethan's age. The benches were the same, the trees taller, and the pond still rippled with ducks gliding across its surface. I sat down, exhausted, and let the memories flood in. A voice interrupted my thoughts. "Sir, are you all right?" I looked up to see a young woman, perhaps in her 30s, holding a tray of coffee. She worked at the small cafe by the park. Her eyes were kind, something I hadn't seen in a while. "I'm fine," I lied, though my voice betrayed me. She sat beside me, offering a cup. "Here, it's on the house. You look like you need it more than I do." For the first time in days, warmth touched my soul. I accepted the cup with trembling hands, muttering a weak thank you. We talked. She told me her name was Sarah, a single mother raising her daughter while working double shifts. She laughed lightly, saying, "Life's tough, but love makes it worth it." Her words struck me. I realized I had been so focused on my own pain that I had forgotten. Life was still full of people who valued love, even in hardship. Over the next week, I returned to that bench daily. Sarah would join me during her break and we'd share stories. I told her about Margaret, about raising Daniel, about the wooden toys I loved to carve. She listened, truly listened, something I hadn't felt in a long time. One afternoon, she brought her daughter Lily to meet me. The little girl with her curly hair and bright eyes reminded me of Ethan. She immediately clung to me when I showed her how to carve a small bird from wood. "Wow," she exclaimed, Can you teach me more? For the first time since Daniel's cruel words, I felt useful again. My hands, though aged and wrinkled, still held skill. My stories still carried value. My presence still mattered. As weeks passed, Sarah and Lily became my unexpected family. They invited me to dinners, laughed at my old jokes, and filled the void in my heart. Slowly, I began to heal. But fate wasn't done with me yet. One evening, as I walked back from the park, I saw a familiar figure standing by the corner of the street. It was Ethan. His little face was red, his eyes filled with tears. "Grandpa," he cried, running into my arms. I knelt, hugging him tightly. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Daddy and Mommy were fighting," he sobbed. "I heard them saying you weren't coming back. I don't want you to go away. Please don't leave me, Grandpa." His words shattered what little walls I had built. I realized then, though my son saw me as a burden, my grandson saw me as his anchor. I carried him back home that night, but in my heart I knew something had to change. Back at Daniel's house, Clara opened the door with shock. "Ethan, Dad, where have you been?" Daniel appeared moments later, his face pale. He looked at me, then at Ethan, and for the first time his eyes softened with shame. "Dad, he began, but words failed him. I stood tall as my weak body allowed, and spoke firmly. "Daniel, I gave you everything I had, not for gratitude, but for love. But when you called me a burden, you broke more than just my heart. You broke the bond between us." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. Ethan clung to my hand tighter, as if afraid I would vanish again. I continued, "If you truly believe I'm a burden, then I won't stay. But remember this, love isn't measured by convenience. One day you'll be old too, and the way you treat me will echo into the way Ethan treats you." Silence filled the room. My son lowered his head, shame radiating from him. "Dad, I was wrong. I was stressed, selfish, and blind. You're not a burden, you're my father, and I need you more than I ever realized." His voice cracked, and in that moment I saw not a grown man but the little boy I once carried on my shoulders. Ethan burst into tears, hugging us both. "No more fighting, we're family." Slowly healing began. Daniel apologized day after day, making efforts to care for me, not out of duty, but out of love. Clara, too, showed kindness, often asking me to tell Ethan bedtime stories or carve little toys for him. But it wasn't just about being taken care of. I wanted to live with purpose again. With Sarah's encouragement, I began teaching wood carving workshops at the local community center. Children and even adults gathered to learn, and for the first time in years, I felt alive, needed, and valued. Ethan proudly told his friends, "My grandpa is the best storyteller and toy maker in the world." And Daniel, he came to every workshop, watching quietly from the back. One evening, after everyone left, he approached me with tears in his eyes. "Dad, thank you for giving me a second chance. I promise I'll never see you as a burden again. You're my strength." I smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Son, love isn't about never failing. It's about realizing your mistakes and choosing to do better. That's what makes us human." Years passed and our bond grew stronger than ever. Ethan grew into a fine young man, carrying the values of love, respect, and kindness. And as for me, I no longer feared being forgotten. I had left behind not just toys and stories, but a legacy of love. So when people ask me what changed everything, I tell them this. It wasn't my son's cruelty that defined me. It was his repentance. It wasn't rejection that ended my story. It was forgiveness that gave it new life. And in the end, I realized something I wish every family knew. The old are not burdens. They are bridges, carrying wisdom, love, and history across generations.